Welcome to the Chase Hudson Show, a podcast dedicated to inspiring you to become extraordinary. Each week, we sit down with top-tier business owners, real estate investors, and influencers to inspire you to build your legacy. It's time to level up. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Chase Hudson Show. Today we have Sam Alexander, who is the CEO and owner of PMD Beauty, which is a premier beauty company offering smart beauty tools and skincare products. This is a great conversation with Sam, how they grew their company from scratch and initial product to being able to get into high-end retailers like Nordstrom and Ulta and Bloomingdale's. Really fascinating story. Sam's got some great insights to share, some great knowledge. So I'm excited for you guys to hear it. And with that, let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Chase Hudson Show. Today we have Sam Alexander, who is the CEO and owner of PMD Beauty. Sam has over a decade of experience in the skincare and digital marketing industry. PMD is now a well-known premier beauty brand with its products sold globally in high-end retailers including Nordstrom, Sephora, Ulta, Bloomingdale's, Harrods, and Saks. Sam graduated from BYU with a degree in history and earned his MBA from the University of Utah. So with that, welcome in, Sam.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me on the show. Yeah.
Of course, man. Well, the first thing I typically ask my guests, Sam, is to talk a little bit about your upbringing. So, childhood, teenage, or, early formative years that perhaps molded you or influenced you or feel like had an impact and involved how you ended up today.
Yeah, cool. So I was born in Price, Utah, which is awesome because it's Price, Utah. I don't know if you've spent time there.
Not a lot.
But I don't know if I'm okay to say this, but it's a little bit of a hole. So I grew up catching horny toads and riding horses and all that. And then later moved to Highland and then grew up in Bountiful. But I have 8 siblings, so there's 9 kids. I have a huge family.
Wow.
There's 6 boys, 3 girls. So I kind of, and all of us have pretty strong personalities. So I kind of grew up in a household that was incredible. My parents are incredible, but I mean, we like to tease. There's some fighting. I mean, I've had like fist fights with all my brothers. I mean, there's all of that, but my parents taught me how to, work hard. They taught me, education's important. And I think one of the biggest things my dad told me just growing up, and I totally believed it. In fact, I still do. He'd say, Sam, you're special and you're going to do special things. And I totally believed that. And so my upbringing was incredible, I would say, looking back. I don't know if all my siblings would say that, but how I look back, like I had an amazing upbringing with, doing fun family vacations. My dad was the CEO of a pretty large company, so I kind of idolized him and looked at what he was doing, and I was able to go on a few business trips with him, and kind of it was something I was like, I want to get in on this. So yeah, like I said, I had a good upbringing.
That's great. You mentioned what your dad had said. You're special. You're going to do amazing things. I mean, how do you have kids? I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I have 4 boys.
Okay.
So from 12 to 18.
Yep.
And then we have a 3-year-old girl.
Got it.
So I have 5 kids.
Love it. So how did that influence or that rhetoric from your dad, help you? Do you feel like that really did impact you in terms of your confidence, believing that you could?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Still to this day, even like I still believe I'm going to do special things. And I think it's tied back to my dad telling me since I was a little kid, hey, Sam, you're special and you're going to do special things. So I totally bought into it.
Yeah.
And so that's something too. Now with my kids, I try to do that. It's like, hey, dude, you're going to do some incredible things. You're going to change the world. And I'm hoping they bite into it like I did, because I think it's huge. If you believe that, I think there's a pretty good chance that you will, if you really believe it.
Yeah, I love that. And some of my mom, I don't know if I've mentioned this to her, but she would say the similar thing, like you can do anything you want.
Yeah.
Like Chase, you can be whatever you want to be.
Yeah.
I did believe that. And I do believe that. Right. And it's like, I think there's power in a parent figure, especially as a child. You're very malleable. It's like
Yeah.
your dad is your superhero or your mom or whatever. And so I love that. That's great. And then with your role now, I'm just curious with your kids. I mean, have you involved them at all in kind of your experience as CEO of a PMD? Like, do they like to come to work with dad? Do they
So
like to see
like
what you
my
do?
kids clean my office.
Uh-huh.
And I try to, I'm very open about business with them. My dad wasn't as open, and I always wanted him to be, but I try to be really open. And I have a funny story where my son was in my office and he picked up this disc, which is it's a replenishable disc that goes into our microderm device. And he's like, "Dad, how much do you sell these for?" And I'm like, "For 6 of them, we sell them for $20. He's like, "Well, how much they cost you?" And I'm like, 50 cents. And he's like, he just sat there like, whoa. And I could just see the wheels turning where he's like, okay, I want to get in on business. And that's kind of started to see how the world works.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
there's little things like that. I usually do 1 trip a year and I bring one of my kids. So most of my kids, my son just came back from Croatia with me and sat in all of our business deals in meetings. So he got exposure to that. I've been to a lot of like large events with influencers and all that out of overseas that my kids have come to. And so they've got exposure, but not to the point where it's like, "Hey boys, come and work with me."
Yeah, right.
But I want to get them exposure into business. And one of my other sons, I brought him to a lot of the BYU founder type investment opportunities. So he's getting exposure to that and meeting cool people. So I try to do that. I try to do that.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's one of the big benefits of being a business owner, entrepreneur is,
Yeah.
you know, if I'm working for somebody else, it's probably not appropriate to bring my teenage son into a
Yeah.
meeting on a random Tuesday, but it's like,
Yeah.
hey, you know what? Sam's the man and his son is here and we're all going to be okay with that. And I love that. I think that's...
Yeah, we did one show. We were in Bologna, Italy, and I had my 12-year-old son with me. And we just put a name tag that said CEO in training. And straight up, like, I'm like, are they going to be okay with that? And people loved it.
It's amazing.
And he was doing demos. I mean, again, it was fun.
Yeah.
So we have good memories.
Love that. That's great. Well, transitioning from childhood, so I mentioned you went to BYU, and then later you got your MBA from the U of U. What was your college experience like? So going into school, did you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Did you know you wanted to start a company, or was it like, hey, I'm gonna go get my degree and go get more of a corporate role? What was kind of the thought process?
Yeah, like from an early age, I remember that this is funny, but I would see my dad be the CEO, and my dad worked a lot. He was kind of from the area where it was like you're leaving at 7 and you're getting home at 6, every day. And then he would talk to me about like the owners of the business. And I remember being like, wait a second. Like, yeah, the CEO is cool, but being an owner is even cooler. And so that was just a goal that I've had since I can remember, is I wanted to have my own business. I wanted to be a business owner and be an entrepreneur. So from an early age, that's what it was. So going into school, I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't know exactly what, where to plant or where to, take a start off or what idea to do. So I also knew I wanted to get an MBA. And with that, this is kind of funny, but when I was younger, all I wanted to do was snowboard and I skateboard. That's it. And I never sat down and read. I just couldn't sit still. I don't know if I had ADD or ADHD, but I just couldn't sit still. And so going into college, I sucked at reading and writing. Like I seriously did. And so I thought, okay, I'm pretty good at math, but I'm terrible at reading and writing. So I decided to do a history degree, because I'm like, if I do a history degree, it's going to force me to get good at reading and writing. And then also it gives me an opportunity to do an MBA, and I'm not like just doing just pure business for my undergrad and graduate degree. So I ended up doing history, and I worked my butt off because all I was doing is reading and writing. And after a couple of years, I got pretty good at reading and writing. I got to the point where I could speed read, and I was comprehending, and I was writing well. And then from from BYU, which I loved, then went and got an MBA at the University of Utah, which I really enjoyed. Like I still have friends that I keep in contact with, and it was an awesome experience.
Great. And did you go straight from BYU to MBA, or did you work in between?
I pitched myself as like I started a garage floor epoxy business, and I did that in the summer. So it was kind of like the door-to-door kind of alarm cells type job, but I sold the job, and then I would go and do the labor. And I would make pretty for a college kid. I mean, I don't know, I'd probably make $25,000 or $30,000 a summer. I'd make enough then to live without having to work. Frankly, there's no way I could have worked going to BYU. Like and reading that much. I'm not that good of a student to be able to do that. And so I would then do my schoolwork throughout the year, and then the next summer I would get my business going again. So I used that with the University of Utah and really just pitched myself, hey, like I'm a full-blown entrepreneur. Look, I have this business and this is what it's done. And they bought into it. So I was able to go basically right into the program, which was a huge blessing for me, because I'm not sure if I could have. And I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, so I wasn't as worried, like I got to go get 2 years, then I got to get my MBA and then go get the best job out. It was like, no, I want to get the MBA to build a network, get the education, and kind of get everything going to start a business.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. And yeah, it's pretty unique because a lot of people go work and to your point, it can kind of kill that that traction you have in terms of like getting that master's degree. And so good for you. Yeah, and I saw, Sam, that you in your kind of early career, you mentioned Alexander's Garage and Flooring, and then I saw Sonic Scrubbers. So yeah, what did the next couple of years look like at post MBA for you?
Yeah, so my garage floor business basically paid for all of my schooling, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And then during after my first year of my MBA, I got a job with Sonic Scrubbers, which was kind of considered my intern, but to them it wasn't an intern. And they were a startup, and I was hired to be over a marketing test in Florida and Texas. And I was basically flying to Texas and to Florida basically every week and staying there. And it just really exposed me to the marketing. It exposed me to a startup. And it just to show you how bad I wanted to be in that space. Most of the money I made, I think from the money I made kind of working there 4 or 5 months, I took like 10 grand and gave it back to them to invest in the company.
Wow.
Which ultimately failed, but it was like, I just wanted to be in. Like I was like, I want to be in this. And so, and through that too, I was still able to do some of my garage floor business. And again, I was able to, get through school without having much, if any, debt. So
good deal. That's great. And then how about, Skin Science Institute, Fringe Media, some of these other ventures or jobs that you had?
So I finished my MBA, and again, I'm like, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was my goal, but there was not like a clear path. It wasn't like, okay, here's this idea. And I just kept having the feeling, hey, go get experience and then look for opportunities. And I think someone in my MBA said, like, go work for a business, but constantly look for ways to innovate, or ways that you could serve that business, or ways that you could, take what you learn and start something else. So I went into mindset like, okay, this is my end game. This is not my end game. But I got hired from a startup company. It was Dr. Taylor and his son who owns the Gateway Laser Aesthetic Center. And this was in 2007. And I just kind of timing wise hit it right, because that was right when the internet was real, e-commerce was taking off. And so they started selling skincare on a .com, and it was physician grade skincare. And so I got in there, and they were doing like $40,000 like a month. It was a small business. And for me getting in there and like diving into Google AdWords, and just so you know, back in 2007, if you understood Google AdWords and SEO, that was like back then, it wasn't like a commodity like today. Like back then, like you were you had like the secret sauce. And within 6 months, basically using this Google AdWords, we went from 40 grand a month to about $2 million a month. It was insane. So I kind of got, and I became the CMO of that. And I kind of got a lot of exposure to the skincare, beauty, kind of that cosmetic space, but kind of the higher end, kind of the premium beauty space. And I had a fairly big team there, and just got tons of digital marketing, started in 2008 and 9. We're working with influencers back when we even called them influencers. And so I kind of got a lot of exposure that really prepped me for PMD Beauty.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's a pattern that a lot of individuals have talked about on the show is the value of, experience. I think a lot of times as entrepreneurs or budding or aspiring entrepreneurs, it's like, I just want to shortcut it and go start a business. And you can be successful doing that, but I think there's true value in, like you said, going and working with another group and, learning on their dime for a few years and
and you can't really force you can't really force a startup like you. So to me, I totally believe in, if you have a mindset that you want to have and be an entrepreneur, you will be constantly looking for opportunities. And that's basically what happened with me.
Yeah. So take us from there, Sam. You sounds like you're helping grow this business on the skincare cosmetic side. How did you pivot that? What was the next move for you?
Yeah. So like we grew so fast. And when I came in, it's like, hey, Sam, we're bringing you on. You're going to be a partner. You're going to be a part of this. But we grew so fast, I had nothing in writing. And all of a sudden, when you go from being, a few $100,000 a year to 25 million, the company's worth a lot more at 25 million. And owners in general are going to have a harder time giving you a big piece of that when it's at that point. And so I learned some of that the hard way. And so I didn't get the ownership that I thought I deserved or wanted. And so at that point, it was kind of like, okay, I just had this feeling like there's something, and I was looking, there's something else, there's something bigger, that there's something bigger out there for me. And so again, I went from there was like a 6-month period where it was like, I know there's something bigger out there. And it was like one of those deals. I'm praying every day. I know there's something bigger out there. And like, I'm going to be ready for it when it hits me. And I got invited from a guy named Paul Taggart. He said, hey, I have this product that I have access and the rights to. Will you come and meet me and check it out? So I went with Dr. Taylor. We met at like 7:00 at a Denny's restaurant. It's kind of funny, at Denny's.
Yeah.
And Paul pulls out this product. It's the personal microderm. And straight up, when he literally showed it, it was like the heavens opened for me. It was like, this is it. This is your ticket, Sam. This is your business. And so from that, I basically was able to broker a deal with Paul and with Dr. Taylor for the parent company I was working to get equity in the company and in equity in the microderm company, in return to use my team to build a website, start the company, and really get it going. And Dr. Taylor he didn't really want to do it, but I saw the opportunity. I was like, I want to do this, and this is frankly my ticket. And so I basically brokered a deal and convinced Dr. Taylor and his son, and basically straightforward said, yeah. And if this thing once this gets going, I'm going to PMD basically full time. And so we built the website, built out the strategy, we launched, and pretty quick I was over there full time working with Paul. And so it was a pretty, it wasn't, the traditional kind of startup kind of approach on my side. And even with Paul, our product, that personal microderm, was invented by a totally different group back in 2003. And he was building a house for one of the inventors, and then got involved in the company and helped them launch it. But they had patent problems. And they just couldn't get it going. And it was probably just too early for beauty devices. It was back in 2003 and 4, but they had 1,800 devices. So they manufactured 2,000 devices in 2003, and then sold or gave away 200 of them. So in 2010, they had 1,800. And Paul was in real estate, and he had a lot of investments in real estate and lost, as you can imagine, in 2007 and 8, 9 and 10, lost a lot. So he was at the point where he's like, okay, I remember I have 1,800, there's 1,800 microderms out here. And so that's literally how we started. We had no cash, but 1,800 devices. And that's how it began. And then from my team, I was just fortunate because we were doing some pretty cutting edge things. Like, we were sending product to what we called mommy bloggers, which in today's terms would be influencers. And so we took 500 of those 1,800 devices, and we just started. That was our business plan, straight up. It was that simple. We built the website, and then, okay, let's send this out. And there's two things that we thought we would learn. One, are women going to like the product? Does it really work? And two, can we sell product? And those went out. And then all of a sudden it was like, dang, we just sold 75 devices, which was like a big deal, like 75 devices.
Yeah.
And then like the next week, oh, dang, we just sold 100 devices. And that's kind of just how it got going.
Yeah. Started going from there.
Yeah.
I feel like the social media, the power of influencers, these mom bloggers and other individuals is extremely powerful.
Yeah.
And I've heard that multiple times.
And the best part, this was back in 2010.
Yeah.
Like, we used to call mommy bloggers, then we called them YouTubers, and then so now, it's
Right.
an influencer, but that term wasn't really coined until like 2014 or 15. So
Yeah.
we were pretty far ahead of the curve on that.
Right. Pioneering.
Yeah.
So with the group that invented the product, did you have to acquire the patent, the rights? Did they kind of get out? Were they out of the deal, or did they still maintain ownership?
Yeah, we kind of have. Yeah, I don't know how much whatever
you can share. I mean,
they're just funny stories with it, right? So Paul basically said to them, "Hey, I'll take care of you guys,"
mm-hmm.
but had nothing in writing. And so he then came to me and Dr. Taylor, said, "Hey, I have access to this." He did have access, but he didn't have all that figured out. So I think it was a couple of years later, we had to go back. We had to pay the inventors, and then they have an incentive. Basically, they're going to get a payout someday if our company ever sells.
Got it.
So they're totally happy. I'm in really good terms with them. They're kind of cheering us on. But they had patent problems. We ended up buying a patent. I've got so many funny patent stories, but we ended up buying a patent for $650,000, which was a ton of money for us early on. That patent wasn't really that relevant to us, because then we had other patent problems that we ended up settling for $2.5 million. So I've kind of learned the hard way about, probably $3.5 million the hard way on patents. Yeah, that's a whole other discussion. It's pretty funny.
So the initial, you have 1,800 units of inventory from the original inventor through Paul. Yeah. What was the required funding at that point? Did you need capital to pay for those 1,800 to get a website or was it all kind of, were you able to live on the salary with your other group? Yeah.
So I went kind of part-time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just trying to remember all the details. I think I went part-time and did PMD. And then once it got big enough to pay me, but I took like a 50% pay cut. And I had just bought a house in Alpine. It was like a kind of a stressful thing, because all of a sudden I'm like, dang, my new salary, I don't know if I can even afford this new house that I just bought.
Sure.
But it was one of those things, making that move fairly quickly. We just early on had a lot of success, and cash flow wise, when you have 1,800 units that are paid for and you're selling those units, you know, at $150 to $200, you can you're bringing in cash pretty quick. And then we just had like really what funded us, because we've never had funding, but what really funded us was I was able to broker a deal with Good Morning America, and this was like in 2012. And they had a brand new program called GMA Steals and Deals. A lot of people now know that program, but we were one of like the early pioneers of that. And the first time we were on there, we sold out, and we sold 12,000 units and sold out. And we brought in like $1.5 million. Like not that much longer later, we got more inventory. We sold 25,000 units and brought in $2.5 million within 24 hours. So amazing. That's what really, once you have that much cash for our business, that's what really kind of helped us. That was really our fundraising.
Yeah.
But it's something, I mean, early on, right? I mean, I wasn't very excited about having investors. I don't think Paul was. And so there's something about doing it yourself and then being able to control your own destiny. As soon as you start bringing investors, you answer to them.
Right.
And it's great, but it definitely, it takes away, it takes away some of your freedom.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So did you feel, Sam, that initial, Denny's meeting when you're structuring this deal, did you walk away from that feeling like, hey, I've got a great deal here in terms of what was going to be your upside, your ownership, your role, and how has that kind of evolved and played out over the years?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I definitely could have got way more early on. I mean, I could have been, I think, a 50-50 partner early on. Early on, we kind of had a deal where I would get up to 15% as we grew, and I did that. But I was just kind of like, I was so bought in, and I actually, and I still do. I believe this was like this is my thing. Like, this is what I'm like destined to do type thing. That's what I believe. And I think that's what kind of helps me going, but I believe that early on. And so it was kind of like, hey, I'm going to be grateful for that. And whatever I can get, I'm going to get, but I'm going to, number one, grow the company. And so early on, that's what I had. In 2014, I mean, in about 2013, Paul was, I don't know, I can't remember his age, 66 or something. And he was kind of slowing down. He didn't, and at that point I became the president. And then in not much, I don't know, a year, maybe that was 2012. Then 2013-ish, he got called to be a mission president. And so we hired an investment bank. We tried to sell the company. And we got offers, but we didn't feel good about any of them. And I wasn't that excited about selling at that point. I'm like, dang, I'm young. Like, I'll make some money, but I'll then all of a sudden be working for this private equity company, which could be fine, but I wasn't that excited. And Paul wasn't. The offers that we got, they were contingent on a lot of things, and we just didn't feel good about it. And so I ended up basically working with a top executive at Zions Bank, and he basically gave the company a loan for me then to buy out Paul. So Paul was able to get a big chunk of money and go on his mission. And at that point, I then retained majority ownership. So I felt like this is my company. And I felt like that earlier, but I only owned 15%. But in 2013, 14, it was like, okay, this is my jam. And then since then too, I bought Paul still has ownership, and I still have other owners, but I have by far the majority of it.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of a process and a fun process, and it's fun. Like I said, I enjoy seeing Paul do well, and he's done some amazing things with his family and serving missions and serving in the community and the church. So it's been fun.
Well, I appreciate you sharing the detail, Sam. And I think that the earlier point you made of taking what you felt was fair at the time as a young, scrappy entrepreneur with an opportunity. I think that's really important point because it's super critical to not be greedy early on.
Yeah.
And like for us doing real estate projects, a lot of times it's like, okay, well, when we go take a deal out to investors, we probably can't offer as aggressive terms as maybe a very experienced or, a group that's been around for 25 years, right? We needed to be more flexible with our investors to not be greedy up front and just understanding that early on execution is the name of the game and the opportunity is the name of the game. And as you get more reps, experience, hopefully the opportunity grows and the ownership and all that. So I think that's really important because you could have been like, forget this, guys. I want 50%. It could have killed the whole thing. Right?
Yeah, I think it would. I mean, but there's something about having gratitude, but being very aggressive.
Yeah.
If you can master being very aggressive in business, but still have gratitude, I think you're going to go places because no one wants to, like even me now, like with my employees, it's not that fun to give people bonuses when they just expect it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would tell my employees, if you want a bigger bonus, like be grateful and have gratitude, you'll make more money.
Yeah.
So I think in my scenario, hopefully I've done that where I'm just so grateful for what I have. And I guess it's easy to say that when I'm in the spot that I am now, but early on, I think if you can practice that and force yourself to have gratitude, I just think people are more generous and they want to help and I think in general, it's like I said, I enjoy other people making money. It's fun to see their lives be enriched and, be more secure and all that.
Absolutely. So talk a little bit more on PMD. So what does PMD stand for? Is that microderm?
Yeah, it started as personal microderm. So one of the things when we went to market back in kind of 2013, one of the biggest things that all of the, private equity people would say is like, you guys are like a one-trick pony. And so at that point, we thought, dang, we can't, our original aim was personal microderm. And so I changed the name from personal microderm to PMD Beauty. And we still felt like, hey, it holds the roots of personal microderm, but it allows us to then launch other products. Right now, we don't really care. I don't really care if people think of it, oh, it's personal microderm. Some people think it's like personal medical doctor. I don't really care. But it gives, the name at least gives us a platform to introduce other technologies. And that's what we've done. So we started with the flagship, the personal microderm product. From that, we saw a lot of women using our caps on our personal microderm, and they would take out the discs that spin that actually abrade the skin, and they would plump their lips. And so from that, we then developed technology that was pulsating vacuum technology and created a lip plumping device called the PMD Kiss. So we introduced that, and that's done fine. And then from that, we introduced a silicone cleanser, which is called the PMD Clean, which is, it uses sonic glow technology, but it's basically a vibrating technology at 7,000 beats per minute. And it uses silicone bristles, and it basically helps. It cleans your skin. It vibrates the dirt out of your pores, and it does really well. We've sold millions of those. From that, we've had multiple iterations from that. We have one that has LEDs on the back of it for acne. We have rose quartz of gold. We have silver on the back of them that heat up, that do heat therapy called active warmth. And then we've just launched a product called the PMD Wave Pro, which is a skin spatula, which helps with pores and blackheads. And it uses the same kind of that sonic kind of vibration type technology. And then we have all the skincare with it. So we have a full product line, but we went from being kind of that one trick pony of like saying, hey, like Paul would say, we got to be, our microderm needs to be on everyone's counter, and that we're going to own the microderm abrasion world. And it's transformed to, no, we're not going to own the microderm abrasion world. We're there. We're going to own her vanity. So we're going to be the device company where that's when women think about, beauty devices, they're thinking about PMD Beauty, and we're going to own that shape on that space on her vanity. So it's much more of a broad kind of goal now. And it's a lot more fun because now it's like we're just like inventing products, and we have a good enough customer base where we can launch them and kind of get things going. So it's yeah, we're in a pretty fun business, but didn't happen overnight.
Right. So it's been, the initial meeting at Denny's was 2010.
Yeah, 2009, 2010,
okay,
around there.
So 13 years or so.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm curious from the meeting at Denny's, 1,800 units, getting some influencers involved in it. It's starting to get some scale. Again, you mentioned Good Morning America. So how did you go from, doing several thousand to where you guys are today? I mentioned Nordstrom, Ulta, some of these bigger retailers. Like how did you go? How did that occur? Was it, was there anything pivotal, or was it just over time?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, well, there's luck, right? I mean, like this was like in 2012, I was sitting in my office and this guy calls and says, "Hey, I'm the producer of Dr. Oz." I was like, "Okay, I'm listening." And he said, "Hey, Dr. Oz found your product. He wants to put on the show." I'm like, sweet. And that was back when like Dr. Oz was kind of like, for daytime TV, he was like the Oprah of back in 2012. So he put us on the show. That was a huge break. The other thing was just being persistent. Like Nordstrom, for example, I think this was in 2013 or 14. I would find the buyers, their email addresses and their phone numbers, and dude, I would just start calling them and emailing them. And I'm not kidding. I really think I had called and emailed the Nordstrom buyer over 150 times. I'm being straight up.
That's awesome.
She finally gets it. She lets me come pitch, and I don't think our first pitch wasn't successful. I kept hitting her, kept staying on it. She lets me come up to Seattle again the second time. She finally agrees. Okay, look, we'll put it online. But you have to hit a threshold if it goes online. And I'm like, I'm pretty confident. And then I said, our goal is to go indoors. And she's like, well, you can only go indoors. I can't remember the numbers exactly, but if you have to hit like $10,000 a week on .com to go indoors. And I'm like, so you're saying if we hit $10,000 a week on .com, you'll put us indoors? She's like, yes, I'll do that. So a few months go by, we're freaking smashing the $10,000 a week type thing. And I call her up and I'm like, hey, we've hit those numbers, what you've said, like we're ready to go indoors. And she's like, Sam, like, no, we're not doing that. And I was like, and I just said, hey, you gave me your word. You were going to do that. You need to follow through on that. And it was like a long pause. And I was like, it's like one of those awkward pauses.
Yeah.
And straight up after 30 seconds, she's like, okay. And so, yeah, it was just those little persistent, I wouldn't say little, those were kind of big. I don't know.
150 emails. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm being serious. Like it
great.
was not bam, just constantly. And it's because I believed in it. And then I also kind of believed in myself. I just thought, hey, if I stick with this, we're going to get it. And then you just do it. And then you get on a phone, you get a rejection. It's like, well, okay, I'm going to pull the honesty card on you because I'm willing to do anything right now. You said you were going to do it. We're doing this. So anyways.
I love that story.
Yeah.
So good. I think persistence it's like the number one attribute of a successful entrepreneur because there's so much opposition and just, tenacity and failure and things. And I really appreciate that story because similar to us, right? It's like, I mean, even my email to you, right, to do this podcast, it's like I'm reaching out cold. I'm like, hey man, you want to come do this podcast?
Yeah.
And here we are. So, and if anyone listening has ever gotten an email from us on an investment opportunity and you're bugged, it just is what it is. So
it's what it takes, man.
It is what. So I love that. So with Nordstrom, are you guys? I mean, were you able to get? How does that work? Is it national rollout or is it like
no? They'll like kind of like
regional?
roll you out, and it's kind of like you roll out indoors, then it's kind of like a harmonica. You're kind of like going in and out. But early on, like Nordstrom was really, really big for us. Like I traveled all over speaking at, they're called Nordstrom trend shows, where they take all the women that are spending like over 50 grand a year at Nordstrom, which is like hard to believe. But like there's crazy women out there that do that.
Yeah.
And you basically, they have shows and presentations for them. And so Nordstrom was, it's a cool business. And we're definitely grateful for that partnership.
That's amazing. So today, I mean, it sounds like you've diversified your product offering.
Yeah.
You've got the tools, you've got skincare, you've cosmetics, and now you're in a lot of very prominent, well-known retailers. So what does it look like today? I mean, how are you guys doing, and what do the next couple of years look like?
Yeah, like it was crazy. Like during COVID, when COVID first kind of came out, we had a couple of weeks where it was like, oh crap, what's like, I think everyone did, like the world's ending type thing. And in business, like it was scary, but 2 weeks were slow. And then after that, it was like, it was insane. Like we were selling like crazy because women were at home. They couldn't go to the spa or salon. They had money. Trump was sending most of America just free cash. And when he would send those stimuluses, we would actually see it. Because we track all and monitor all of our sell through. We would see all of a sudden, bam, we see these huge lifts. And so during COVID, we probably the best way to say is we're just printing money. It was that insane. And so the downside with that is that we got you kind of start to believe that that's just how it's going to be. And a lot of like the reports that came out, even from private equity saying, oh, we believe that e-commerce, this is the new way of e-commerce. It's going to keep going like this. And anyways, it didn't. And I know we're not the only ones. We definitely have had like a slowdown. So it's kind of been good because we've had to make some pivots, but we're at a point now where it's kind of helped us refocus on what our core growth strategy is. And it's launching new devices and kind of building out kind of our portfolio of products and continuing to nurture kind of the community that we have. So our business definitely looks different now than it did 2 years ago, but I'm super optimistic about kind of what we have going on. A lot of the tactics that we did during COVID stopped working. But whenever change happens, it just opens up new opportunities to figure stuff out. And so like during COVID, I got to the point where I was like, dude, I think I've figured it out. Maybe I have this like special gift, I figured it out. And then you realize really quick, no, the gift is like being persistent and being entrepreneurial. And we've kind of I've got back to that to be like, okay, let's get back to our roots and we have to refigure out some of the marketing and advertising that was killing it. And now it's not, but pretty optimistic. I think we're on track and we figured out some pretty cool new things.
Good deal. So you're based in Draper. How many employees do you guys have?
I think we have 23.
23.
Yeah.
And is I assume most manufacturing's overseas?
Yeah. Most of it. Some of our skincare is made in the U.S.
Okay.
We have a manufacturer in Vietnam, a couple in China, and then we have stuff out of Korea as well.
Got it. And shipping, and I'm no expert, but like when someone orders something online, is that going to a warehouse in the U.S. and then distributed elsewhere? Or is it coming
so we have our largest fulfillment centers in Salt Lake by the airport.
Okay.
But we have a fulfillment center in Australia, Canada, the UK, and the Netherlands.
Wow.
And then our manufacturers will ship, to those fulfillment centers. Yep. And then each one of those fulfillment centers are kind of shipping to their those surrounding
Final
areas.
destination. Yeah. Are those fulfillment centers leased by your group, or do you own those buildings?
Nope, they're all 3PL.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. One thing I learned, and again, this is just for me. I don't want to say this is for everyone, but early on with my kind of first kind of digital marketing e-commerce experience, we did everything in-house, everything from web design to development to shipping our products. And like when we did PMD, my goal was like, no, we are going to become experts at advertising, marketing, and sales. Because if you can figure that out and focus on that, your product, you can figure out how to ship your product.
Right.
And so, and I would say in addition to those things, in kind of innovation. And so that's kind of been our goal. So like a lot of the stuff that's why we don't have a ton of employees. We probably could have 100 employees, but a lot of it's just third party, because I'm not that interested in worrying about if our products have shipped. Like I can see a report and ensure that they're shipped, but we're not managing any of those people.
Yeah.
And there's ebbs and flows, like in e-commerce. Like we do a ton of volume in Mother's Day, a ton of volume in Black Friday. And if I was managing that, like we would have to, hire 100 times during those periods. And when you have a 3PL, it's all just taken care of.
Yeah, makes sense to outsource some of that and get efficiencies and scale. Love it. Well, you've done a great job. You mentioned the marketing. I mean, since I was doing some preparation for this, and ever since I've Google searched PMD Beauty, my Instagram,
you're getting followed, yeah.
I'm just getting hit up with every other scroll. It seems like is a device from you guys, which is great. So I don't know how Google works, but it knows.
They just know.
They just know everything. Yeah. So, well, cool. Last couple of questions, Sam. We'll wrap up. I am curious in terms of, you're outside of your business, when you think about investing, you've had success. How do you think about diversifying your wealth, investing landscape, all of that?
Yeah, I've been, again, very grateful for this and just lucky. But like because we don't have investors, right? When we make money, we can do distribution. So like my goal's always been to try to pull, have kind of separate kind of my wealth from the business, because the business is worth a lot. And I understand that, but I've tried to like set aside and kind of be secure outside of that. And so, yeah, I mean, most of my investments, I work with a group here in Utah, but just a lot of like funds. I'm in a lot of private equity funds. I'm in a lot of real estate funds, debt funds. I've done some, I'll do some angel type investing. But that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah. But my goal, like I said, I know I kind of have the company, but I've been lucky to kind of separate some of that.
Right. That's smart. Yeah. And how have you thought about money? I know from a young age, it sounds like you want to be an entrepreneur, have success, and it doesn't sound like money was a primary motivator, but now that you are in a position where you've created some wealth and you've had stability, how do you view money, like from a mindset standpoint?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like I think money you can do a lot of good with. And I think there's a lot of bad you can kind of do, especially with your kids and with families. I don't know. It's almost like I try to view it like it's like you're grateful for it and it's there and it's a tool, but it's not like it's not everything, especially on the frugality side, but then also on the spending side. So I don't know, just try to have like a happy balance. But money definitely helps create experiences. I think it helps bring stability, create security. It helps create opportunities for like my kids type things. But I don't know. I haven't put a huge weight. It's not the big driver for me. Like I said, from a young age, I thought I was special. It wasn't like I'm measuring being special because there's money. So, but yeah, making money's fun. There's no question. And that's really fun. And and it's fulfilling. I do get fulfilled from seeing, launching a new product and seeing it do well, or investing in something and seeing the returns. That's all fun, but I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, no,
I just know,
answer.
it's nice. You can go to a restaurant and you can order whatever you want. And other than that,
yeah,
you can have, but it's not a huge, I wouldn't say money's a huge role in my day to day, and even in my family's.
That's great. Yeah, I appreciate that insight. And then what would be maybe some advice? So we've talked a lot about your experiences here, but what would be, one piece of advice or generic advice for somebody wanting to start a business or, get an entrepreneurship, anything that you might be able to share?
Yeah, for me, passion and persistence is huge. And just not quitting, having a vision, believing. Because again, for me, I just know for myself, I believed that I was going to be an entrepreneur. I believed that I was going to be successful. And I've just never given up, and I'm not going to give up. I'm going to just keep going until, I think I'll be doing the same thing when I'm 80 years old. And so, I think the other thing too is, I think it's okay, and we talked about this earlier, but you can go get experience. And I'm very certain, I really believe this. If you have good experience and, I don't know if you want to believe in a higher power or not, but if you believe and look for opportunities, I actually think things will be presented, and you'll kind of you'll get an aha moment of okay, I'm doing this. And it could be in a form of a startup. It could be in form of meeting someone new. And then at that point, you have to take the risk and you got to do it. And then at that point, you got to go all in. But it's kind of the root of it for me is kind of that passion and just not giving up and persistence.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. And last question, Sam, something I ask all my guests is, when you think about how you define success in your life, thinking about all aspects or a life well lived, how does Sam Alexander define success?
Yeah, it's a good one. So for me, I want to be, having security is huge. Once you have security, money's not that big of a deal, frankly, in my opinion, cause you're secure. You can kind of, and I think that's really nice. But for me, just being with my family and making sure they're a priority and they understand they are a priority. I think being balanced, I think having a belief in a higher power or having religion, I think is a big part of it. The one thing I haven't mentioned, I'm an avid cyclist. I'm a big mountain biker. I probably ride 150 miles a week. So for me, success is kind of having those balance pieces and kind of going all in on all those is the best you can.
Love it. Well, no better way to end, Sam. I truly appreciate you taking the time to share your story, and very inspirational. I wish you all the best in your guys' continued growth and success. And thank you again.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Awesome. Thanks for listening to The Chase Hudson Show. If you liked what you heard, please leave me a review and subscribe to this podcast. Reviews really help us to find better guests and to improve the overall quality of the show. If you'd like to connect with me directly or want to learn more about investing in real estate, send me a DM on Instagram at @officialchasehudson. Again, we really appreciate you listening, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.